Okay, part one. Lucy and Desi. Lucille Ball was a Leo, Capricorn. Her Venus is in Virgo, her Mars is in Taurus, and her Mercury is in Virgo. Now, Desi is a Pisces sun, Cancer moon, Cancer rising, Mercury in Aquarius, Venus in Aquarius, Mars in Pisces. Okay, definitely a fun pair, an explosive pair together for sure. They probably felt very misunderstood by one another at various... They communicate differently. I cannot begin to explain what I Love Lucy means to me. If you are like me, you would watch Nick at Night, watch I Love Lucy with your siblings or your grandparents. There are certain episodes of that show that really stick out. I remember almost peeing my pants with the chocolate factory scene and also the wine scene when they're stomping on the grapes. There are so many moments in that, but we'll get into it. Let's do a little background on Miss Lucille Ball first. Lucille Ball was born August 6th, 1911 in Jamestown, New York. And her middle name is Desiree, so Lucille Desiree Ball. She was the first and only daughter of Henry Ball, a lineman for Bell Telephone. What I think of when I read, telephones that needed operators, I always think of the mom in Mary Poppins when she comes home from that feminist march and she is calling to be connected somewhere. She's like, yes, can you please connect me to this house? That's what I think. I could be wrong, but I just recently watched Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins. That fucking English accent. Dick Van Dyke was reamed for that English accent. But honestly, to the American ear, Mary Poppins. It wasn't bad. Okay, back. And her mother was Desiree or Dee Dee Ball. Because of her father's career, I don't know why, but apparently because of her father's career, she moved a lot in her early childhood. First Anaconda, Montana, and then Trenton, New Jersey. I also didn't know there was a town called Anaconda, but I'm happy to know it now. I'm sure it's beautiful. I just Googled Anaconda, Montana, and apparently it's a very haunted town. Okay, back to Miss Lucille Ball. Okay, so on February 28, 1915, they were living in a town, I'm going to butcher the name, Wyandotte. Well, her father died of typhoid fever in that town. He was 27 years old. And at that time, Dee Dee Ball was pregnant with her second child. Later, Fred Ball. So Lucille Ball says that she doesn't remember much from that day that her father died. She was 3 or 4. But she does remember that day a bird being trapped in the house. And that led to her lifelong phobia of birds. There's a name for it. Ornithophobia. If you are a spiritual person, I consider myself a spiritual person. I just think I know a little about a lot. And I fuck up a lot, but I'm always trying to learn. And I do know that birds, if you dream about a bird being trapped somewhere inside a house where you are, that symbolizes the feeling of feeling constrained in your house or restricted. And I just think that's an interesting phobia of hers to have, because I definitely think she broke a lot of barriers and she always felt like she had a lot to prove. Also, we'll talk about themes in her marriage and themes in her career, but we'll get into that. After her father died, her mom moved back to New York, and her grandparents and her mom raised her and her brother. They moved to a town called Celeron. This town was on Chautauqua Lake, which was kind of like a summer resort spot. The town was described as idyllic. She remembers from her very young age going to see a movie with Charlie Chaplin in it, and in her mind deciding, that's what I want to do. I want to perform. In 1919, 4 years after her father died, her mother remarries, and her new husband is Edward Peterson. The family then moves to Detroit. And the kids, Lucy and Fred, are then taken care of by Edward's extremely strict Swedish parents. This is a lot of change for a little girl. It's not anyone's fault. I mean, it sounds to me that they're just doing the best they can, and life happens to everyone. And even though I doubt she remembers a lot of this change, I don't think your body forgets or your subconscious, you know? I just feel like your body starts to assimilate change with discomfort, or that feeling of newness, but not in the way that you look forward to, just like starting over again, you know? And this couple, the Swedish couple, banished all mirrors from the house except one over the bathroom sink. Whenever Lucy was caught admiring herself in it, or maybe standing a little too long in front of the mirror, she was punished. And she says that this huge change in her life was one of the first severe traumas in her life. I think probably as a little girl you realize, oh, everything has changed, especially after her father's death. And her mother leaves her with this Swedish family and her stepfather. And she says this affected her greatly. Of course it did. It's so sad. She writes that she used to daydream. It kills me. She used to daydream about her mom, what she looked like, what she smelled like, what she dressed like. She lived with this couple for like 5 years. And she said it was horrible. And then her mom comes back. But when her mom comes back, she doesn't feel this joy that she thought she would feel. She feels rage. She feels resentment. Who wouldn't after being, she was abandoned. No se podía peinar. Like she could barely like braid her hair too long in the mirror without being, please. So when her mom comes back, they all move back to New York with her grandparents. Her mom, her stepdad, herself, her little brother, and her grandparents all lived in one house with their aunt and a cousin. And they all worked very hard to make ends meet. So when Lucille Ball is 12, her stepfather encourages her to audition for this organization for their new chorus line show. This organization is called Shriners. And I had never heard of it, but Shriners is a fraternity-based organization through the Masonic Temple. They put on parades, trips, circuses, dances, dinners, sporting events, and other social occasions together. And I Googled it, and I still don't kind of understand what it is. Okay. Shriners International describes itself as a fraternity based on fun, fellowship, and the Masonic principles of brotherly love, relief, and truth. There are about 200 temples across Northern America, South America, Europe, and Southeast Asia. The organization founded the Shriners Hospital for Children. The organization was previously known as Shriners North America. The name was changed in 2010 across the world. Notable American Shriners were Mel Blanc, John Wayne, Roy Rogers, Douglas MacArthur, Gerald Ford, and Harry Truman. In 1870, there were several thousand Freemasons in Manhattan, many of whom lunched at the Knickerbocker Cottage at a special table on the second floor. They all all the pictures of them are like this. Hold on, I'll show you. You know what I mean? I don't get it. Why do you guys need shows? Like, they wear those hats, those hats with they're just like a foundation, but they used to be called the Arabic something. What were they called before? They used to be called the Ancient Arabic Order of Nobles of the Mystic Shrine. So why is Gerald Ford in there? Gerald, not Gerald. Whatever the fuck. Like, what is Harry Truman doing in there? Okay, whatever. That's a story for another time, I feel. Anyway, so she auditioned. So while she's on stage auditioning, she realizes that, not only does this feel good, I think I'm really good at it. So when she's 14, she starts dating this 21-year-old. And it was believed that Johnny had a lot of mob ties. Apparently his dad was known to be affiliated with some very interesting people. Her mother tried to heavily influence this romance, and was severely disapproving, but to no avail. So this is in 1925, right, when she's 14. When she's 16 or 15. Part 2. Lucy and Desi. Like we always go on these adventures together. Like, did you think I was gonna bring up the ancient Arabic order of the nobles of the mystic shrine? Nor did I. Look at us. So anyway, she's dating this gangster, and her mom's like, no, 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 no. So she's like, I've been telling her I disapprove. I've been trying to keep them apart. I've been trying to break this up. Whatever. What I'm going to do instead is she enrolls her in this school, the John Murray Anderson School for the Dramatic Arts in New York City. Despite them being strapped for cash. She's like, I'm sorry, you can't be with this dude. It's bad news. You're going to go away to school and you have shown interest in being a performer. So here we go. Look at this looker. Huh? Okay. So apparently this school, right, very serious drama school. Lucille Ball goes to her audition and she says that everybody is doing these Shakespearean monologues, sonnets or whatever for their audition. Side note, really quickly. So apparently in Miami, there is this huge spy that was discovered that like my little cousin went to school with one of the spy's sons, and he's Colombian, but he was a spy for Cuba. And he was like trying to like spread, and he did very successfully spread communism throughout Latin America. And they found tapes of him saying like this is the biggest slam dunk against the enemy, and the enemy being America. But he is like a genius. He like went to MIT. He works in security here. He's like apparently everybody said he was like a brilliant mind. Of course he was. He's living a double life, whatever. Anyway, but he was a MAGA, like red hat to the fullest fucking degree, like true, like just spewing like everything against like anything liberal, calling it communism, saying that anything to do with like the Democratic Party is comunismo, all that stuff. And apparently people that my family knows told my family that MAGA people that they knew blocked him and unfollowed him because he was so extreme. And then in the middle of the family dinner, I go, the lady doth protest too much. And everybody looked at me and said, you bitches thought I didn't know any Shakespeare. Anyway, so everybody in this school auditioning is doing Shakespeare. And she said, no, I'm going to go with a comedy monologue. These tangents. Just one more little tangent. We were talking about this because my little cousin went to school with his son. So my aunt was part of like the PTA mom's crew. And I told her the WhatsApp chat must have been on fire the day he got arrested. He lived at City Center here in Brickell. Craziness. Pobre familia. Anyway, the panel of judges at Lucille Ball's audition cracked the fuck up. Apparently she had them in stitches the entire audition. They loved her so much, despite the school being extremely conservative, very, very traditional. I'm talking about like dance classes or ballet. Everything else was Shakespeare classics, you know. She had to take ballet. She had to take classes like elocution. I don't even know what that is. And I did too many tangents already, so I cannot afford to Google. I'm going to lose you. Elocution is the skill of clear and expressive speech, especially in distinct pronunciation and articulation. Sorry. So even though she like slam dunked the audition, her teachers would tell Lucille Ball all the time, you know, you're never going to make it in entertainment. Just like the people who told Shakira que ella cantaba como una cabra. Bitches. That people used to tell Shakira that she used to sing like a goat. A beautiful one. But because of how strict, oh my God, how restricting this school was, and not willing to invest in her strengths with, I think, was comedy, humor. She says that all she learned in this school was how to be frightened. That's what I would do to those teachers today. If I were her, I would have said, not making the entertainment industry. Let's hear that from someone in the entertainment industry, honey bun. Okay, profesora? One of her classmates in school was Betty Davis, who was an icon in her own right. She was the first actor, male or female, to receive 10 Academy Award nominations, and she was awarded 2 of them for Dangerous and Jezebel, if you know, you know. So Lucy leaves drama school feeling really discouraged, feeling like a failure, feeling like she wasted all this time, that she's never going to be successful. Lucy, if only you know. You got a Latin bitch in Miami talking about you in 2023, honey. Huh? But in 1927, her family wins a legal settlement that changes everything, but not in a great way. I'm going to read this to you. Lucille Ball's brother Freddie got a rifle for his 12th birthday. He was shooting tin cans in their backyard when the neighbor's 8-year-old son, Warner Erickson, appeared and was hit by a stray bullet. Lucille's family had to pay a huge settlement to Warner Erickson, who was paralyzed from the neck down. The neighbor's family lawsuit devastated Lucille Ball's family finances. The settlement cost them everything. The bank foreclosed on their house. They sold all of their furniture, and they had to move out. Lucille Ball later says this, quote, "My grandfather never worked again. The heart went out of him. It ruined Celeron, the town where they were. Celeron, it destroyed our life together there. And because of this, a lot of Lucille Ball's stability was gone. Her grandpa moved in with some distant cousins. Lucy moves into a tiny cramped apartment with her mom, little brother, and stepfather. At this point in her life, she says, I have to do something. So she moves to New York to pursue performing. In 1928, she is determined to prove her teachers wrong and moves to New York. But she also had to tell herself that, because it's not only all that she knew how to do, perform, she'd been studying it, but also she had to put all her fears and doubts aside to provide for her family. So that same year, she began working for Hattie Carnegie. Hattie Carnegie is a fashion entrepreneur. She was born into a very, very poor Jewish family and became an iconic fashion designer. And Lucille Ball started working for Hattie Carnegie as an in-house model for department stores. Hattie Carnegie was not related to the Carnegie family. I gotta move my pillow, or else my butt is gonna flatten out. I've been doing so many squats. She was born Henrietta Kannengeiser, but she changed her last name to Carnegie because that was the last name of Andrew Carnegie and richest family at that time. So basically, Lucille Ball was like a living mannequin for this line. She would stand on a platform and try on clothes while wealthy customers tried to see and pick what they wanted. And it was this designer that told her, you should bleach your hair. And when she bleached her hair, she says that she found this newfound confidence. Here's another quote from her. Hattie taught me how to slouch properly in a $1,000 hand-sewn sequin dress and how to wear $40,000 sable coat as casually as a rabbit. And this gave her her first taste of opulence. So after Lucy was introduced to all these beautiful, lovely clothes, she was like, this is luxury. This is opulence. I want more of this. So one day while Lucille Ball is modeling a $30,000 coat, she feels a pain running up her legs. But she's like, I really want to make this sale. This is her job. So she tries to push through and she eventually passes out. She's rushed to the hospital. And while she's being taken to the hospital, she realizes, I can't move my legs. She was in the hospital for 4 months without any movement in her legs. And then one day, she starts to walk again, but she realizes that she has a severe limp because one leg grew more than the other. So she had a solution. She would wear a shoe with a 20-pound weight on the shorter leg to get it to stretch out. And apparently it worked. But this time at the hospital, really, really rattled her and pushed her to start auditioning even more. Because she's like, I almost lost my life. I'm gonna pursue what I want to do. So in 1932, after the leg incident and a 2-year bout with rheumatic fever, no, pobrecita, Lucy returns to New York City, starts working for Hattie again, and as the Chesterfield cigarette girl. Those are the girls that you see when we watch Mad Men or any other period movies from 50s and 60s. No, not even. Any time before 1989 when women, I used to go to Vagabond on Thursdays in Miami and I would get $1 cigarettes. Not anymore. But the girls who had the straps around their necks and they were cigarettes. She was a cigarette girl. Think of a bottle girl for cigarettes. Like that. She then takes on the name Diane Belmont and getting chorus work on Broadway. No, esta tipa trabajaba con una mula. She was working her ass off. But this did not last her Broadway chorus work career. She was hired and quickly fired from these touring Broadway groups. She gets this little part as a Goldwyn girl in Roman sandals, uncredited, and she goes, fuck it, I'm moving to Hollywood. She had many small movie roles and appeared in Part 3, Lucy and Desi. We're still talking about Lucy, okay? Like, it's so boring. This is crazy. So not only does she do like the Fred and Ginger RKO musicals, Lucille Ball played a larger part as an aspiring actress alongside huge stars Ginger Rogers, who was a distant maternal cousin, and Katharine Hepburn in the film Stage Door in 1937. In 1940, she played the lead in Too Many Girls. It's a musical where she met and fell in love with Desi Arnaz, who played one of her character's 4 bodyguards. Who, you say? Well, let's talk about him. Desiderio Alberto Arnaz de Hacha III, I don't know how to say that in Spanish, El Tercero, was born in Santiago de Cuba on March 2nd, 1917. Okay, his father is Desiderio Alberto Arnaz de Alberni II and Dolores Lolita de Hacha y de Socias. I love those long Latin names. They feel so scary in the best way. Like true royalty. Like, my name's Estefania Vanegas Pessoa, and I always say it to, I'm like, my name on the list, Estefania Vanegas Pessoa, or Tefi. I love it. Some facts about his family. His father was Santiago's youngest mayor and also served in the Cuban House of Representatives. His maternal grandfather was Alberto de Hacha, an executive at rum producer Bacardi & Co. 305, bitch. Born and raised in the county of Dade. I love the Bacardi. I used to be a Bacardi ambassador. Call me. A descendant of Cuban nobility, people say Desi Arnaz, but I think that's just Americanized. So I'm going to say Arnaz, but I think I'm fucking it up. Maybe I'm just too eager. Maybe I'm just too enthusiastic. Whatever. Arnaz was a great-grandson of Jose Joaquin. The Cuban Revolution of 1933 forced Arnaz and his family to lose everything and flee Cuba. A mob attacked and destroyed the family's houses, property, and livestock. They narrowly escaped the attack because they were able to hop in a car to get away. His father, Alberto, did not get away and was jailed, and all of his property was confiscated. Es que las historias de Latinoamérica son... The family then led to Miami, where Desi attended high school. Where did he go to high school?
Rheumatic.
I had to look up how to say rheumatic fever. Shut the fuck up. Hold on. He attended St. Patrick Catholic High School in Miami Beach, also known as St. Patrick Parish School, founded in 1926. Go Shamrocks? Okay. So the family came to the United States with no money, and Desi had to live with his father in a garage that was infested with rats and roaches. His first jobs included working at the clothing store Woolworths and cleaning canary cages in Miami. Then he went into the tile business with his father before turning to show business full time. After finishing high school, he forms a band. It's called the Symphony Septet, and he began making a name for himself in Miami. Xavier Cugat saw him perform. He's Spanish, so is it Javier Cugat? Whatever. Javi saw him perform and hired him for his touring orchestra. And Desi became the star attraction. Becoming so sought after and becoming the star attraction encouraged him to start his own band called the Desi Arnaz Orchestra. I'm just butchering shit left and right, but pay attention to the story. His band, became a hit in the New York City scene, including, they hit all these clubs, including La Conga. That club, La Conga, is credited to introducing the Conga line to the US of A. You owe Latinos everything. Mi gente Latino. He caught the attention of 2 famous songwriters, Rogers and Hart, who in 1939 cast him in a musical called Too Many Girls. And the leading lady was La Señorita Doña Lucille. He then goes to Hollywood the next year to appear in the show's movie version starring Doña Lucille, which brings us to... Ta-da! Okay, now we can talk about that. Now we can talk about them. But I think their lives are very, very, very interesting, and 2 people who worked very, very hard. Destiny definitely put them through the ringer to find each other, please. So she's 28, he's 32. And they meet preparing for this role in Too Many Girls, which is funny. It's called that because mujerión, like womanizer, but whatever. We'll get into it. According to an interview with the Los Angeles Times, Lucy said that he was the love of her life from the very beginning. A quote. Ball visited New York in December of 1939 and at the suggestion of the RKO studio head went to see Too Many Girls on Broadway. Ball was told she was being considered for the role in an upcoming screen adaptation of the musical. The show was a hit due in part to its breakout star, Desi Arnaz. I recognized the kind of electrifying charm, I lost it, that can never be faked. Star quality. Ball remembered of first seeing Arnaz on stage. Then Desi opened his mouth and began talking in his own peculiar brand of broken English, cuidadito, and a great belly laugh burst out of me. She went on. Here was a stunning looking male who was not only thrilling but funny. What a combination. From the very beginning, she doted on him, really eager to make him happy. If he wanted something, she'd get it. Girl, I also suffer from this disease. Like, if they were sitting down and he needed more space, she happily scooched over. A quote from one of her friends. I found it surprising because she was such a strong, independent lady, but when it came to Desi, she was very old-fashioned. Eddie Bracken, her co-star, said, you could tell the sparks were flying with Lucy. It happened so fast, it seemed it wouldn't last. Everybody on the set made bets about how long it would last. After filming Wrapped, she set out on a promotional tour, and he went back to performing in nightclubs. During this time apart, she gets word that Desi has met up with his former flame, Betty Grable. She shows up to the home that he shares with his divorced mother, berating him and calling him a Cuban son of a bitch. Miami ladies, can I talk to you for a second? We've all been there. ¿Dónde está tu hijo? Like, please. Looking for a solution to the argument, Desi said, why don't we get married? I hate that I would fall for that. I hate that. Listen, therapy, it's so necessary. I'm looking for more of an electroshock treatment, perhaps a little lobotomized, but whatever. All of her castmates bet that the marriage would last a week. November of 1940, they elope in Greenwich, Connecticut. It was so spur of the moment that he didn't buy her a ring. So he told his business manager to go to Woolworths and pick out a brass ring. Whatever. When you love somebody, you'll take a fucking rubber band. When you're crazy in love with somebody, you'll take a fucking ring pop. Here is a quote. Although Desi later gave me a platinum ring, that little discolored brass ring rested among the diamonds and emeralds in my jewel case for years. She said this in her memoir. She describes marrying Arnaz as, quote, one of the boldest things I ever did. Míralos. However, there were problems from the start, and within 4 years, Lucille files for divorce because he could not stop entering other bitches, having affairs. And he was drinking crazy amounts. He was just constantly drinking. He had a little bit of a problem. Desi's nightlife had even blasé Hollywood talking, she writes in her memoir. Confidential magazine published a story about a Palm Springs weekend of his, and this too hurt and humiliated me deeply. During the summer of 1944, Desi stopped coming home. Confidential magazine was a huge tabloid at the time. But they quickly reconciled. One reporter wrote this about their divorce filings. So they filed for divorce in court, okay? And Lucille Ball walked out of court into Desi Arnaz's arms. Lucy soon realized, but she, I'm sure, was trying to find a solution to his extracurriculars and saw that her working schedule and his working schedule was creating way too much time apart. So she decided they're going to work together. Darren Strauss, author of a biography about Lucille Ball, says she knew he would cheat if he wasn't around and said, if I'm doing the show and he's out touring, the marriage will never last. Que te dije. But this idea of working together, of collaborating together, led to the creation of I Love Lucy. By 1950, Lucille Ball was not getting a lot of work, and her career had really tapered off. She was dropped by RKO and MGM, so she turns to radio. She was approached to do this show on radio. So before, I don't know if you've ever seen clips of how people would create radio shows. It's really, really interesting. They would do novellas on, soap operas on radio, and the creation of these storylines is so amazing. For Rain, they would get chimes, and if somebody was walking into the door and then her lover walks in the door, and they would take a sheet of metal and then shoes and go really, really, I think it's really fucking dope. She was approached to do this show called My Favorite Husband. It did great, and they wanted to move it to TV. Part 4, whatever. I spilled my juice all over myself. I tried to wash it off. Okay, continuing. So, my favorite husband, they're like, Lucy, take this to TV. And she fought very, very hard for Desi to play the husband. Kathleen Brady is Lucille Ball's biographer. Executives at CBS told Lucille that the average viewer would never accept a Cuban husband for a good all-American girl. Excuse me. A good red-blooded American girl. But Lucille Ball was like, nope, he's gonna play my husband. She could not be swayed. CBS was so intent on making the show a reality that they're finally like, okay, they buckled. They said we were willing to give her whatever she wanted, including her Cuban husband. And this was very scandalous at the time. But listen, she was relentless. She knew that if she didn't steer him into working with her, that his wandering eye would get the best of him. Bitch, I rather shit out a knife. So what? My great-grandmother used to tell my grandmother, who told me that chasing around a cheating man is like working a full-time job for free. And my grandmother always used to say, there are no awards for suffering when you die. But moving on. This was definitely like a hard win. They considered Desi and Lucille Ball to be an interracial couple. And there were no interracial couples on TV at this time. And apparently executives hated his accent. They said that mainstream viewers would be very turned off by the way he spoke. Like, okay, you know what? From what I'm reading and from what I hear, sounds like a lot of red-blooded American girls already like Desi Arnaz in real life. So Desi and Lucy were like, okay, let's prove how much people love us. And they started touring in theater, like doing this show in theater. And then obviously people love them and they're like, okay, fine, let's fucking do this. And they're like, let's call it I Love Lucy. So the CBS show starring Lucille and Desi would come to be known as I Love Lucy, aired on October 15th, 1951 to May 6th, 1957, with a total of 180 half-hour episodes spanning 6 seasons. If you haven't seen I Love Lucy, I don't know. To say that is crazy, but if you haven't, the premise of the show, the series, followed Lucy and Desi, a young middle-class couple. She's a housewife. They are living in New York City, who often concoct plans with their friends and landlords, Ethel and Fred. So good. And her husband was a band leader named Ricky Ricardo, and he ran a nightclub. And I Love Lucy changed the way the United States saw motherhood. 100%. As soon as the show aired, it was clear that Lucille Ball was phenomenal. She was hilarious. She was beautiful, multifaceted, as well as a mother. And what I mean by that is usually on television at this time, that is what one person was. They were not all these things. They were just a mother. She didn't really have a life outside of her husband, her children, and her home. They never expanded on a woman's interests besides her husband, her children, and her home. Think about Leave It to Beaver or Father Knows Best. Those are like classic American television shows, right? The mother is there to raise the children and to solve everything or be like, not the voice of reason, but the softer version of the moral talk at the end. There's always like some kind of like moral conflict or whatever. Think Seventh Heaven. She was very put together, you know, and Lucille Ball in I Love Lucy was a mess. And this was comforting to audiences. People say even liberating about watching Lucille Ball on television, that this woman who was like so quirky, I would even say dorky, but very quirky, very funny, very animated, who could like not contain her urges and her outbursts. They very quickly became America's favorite couple. Less than a year after the premiere of I Love Lucy, in 1951, they welcomed their daughter. They named her Lucy, Lucie. In the second season, Lucille Ball dealt with her real-life pregnancy by incorporating it into the show. Their second child was a son, Desi Jr., so Lucy and Desi, was born in 1953, and he became part of the show's storyline. And incorporating your pregnancy into the show was never done before on television because they in no way wanted to ever allude to sexies, to intercourse, to fornication, you know. Quote, At that time, the Code of Practices for Television Broadcasters prohibited anything sexually suggestive on the air, and that included even the discussion of pregnancy, since it implied that the couple, even a married one, had engaged in baby making. They were the first couple to ever like show a bedroom. Even though they were in twin beds, it was like groundbreaking that they saw a couple sleeping in the same room. Further, when Desi was told that his wife's swollen belly could affect the program's future, an incredulous Desi demanded, "What is so wrong if she has a baby in the show as Lucy Ricardo?" Executives suggested that Lucy could hide the pregnancy by sitting behind chairs or tables. "Not Lucy," he responded. Still, most of the people who worked on the show feared the program would be canceled. Since the word pregnancy itself was not allowed on TV, they resorted to phrases like expecting and with child. The network was so scared that this would affect the show that they gave the script to a priest and a rabbi and asked for their blessing. Ultimately, it was up to Lucille and Desi, and they said, "We're doing it." And they did. The episode, Lucy Goes to the Hospital, where her character has a baby boy, was timed to coincide with Lucy's real life delivery. And that episode was watched by more than 70% of American people with a television set. Lucy scheduled a cesarean delivery for Monday, January 19th, 1953, and CBS readied the birth episode for broadcast that evening. That year, Life featured Lucy and Desi Jr. on its April 6th cover, proclaiming them TV's first family. And here's Lucy and Desi Jr. If I have a kid and I call her Stefania, I can't call her Stefania Jr. Why? Or Stefania the second? I guess I could. Whatever. Within 6 months of its debut, more than half the country would be watching I Love Lucy. And it quickly became the most popular show on television. I wonder if her teachers from high school watched. And if you've watched the show, I'm assuming there's no way you haven't. But if you haven't, they do depict not a perfect couple, but a couple that's like crazy about each other and very loving. And that was very different from what was happening behind the scenes. He regularly cheated on Lucy. Regularly. Like he was paid to do it, girl. Escort to the stars, Scott Bowers, claims that he procured ladies for Desi more than two, 3 times a week. More. In 1955, the Confidential, that tabloid magazine, ran an article about Desi's cheating, and I want to read it to you. And this magazine was notorious, for running career-ending scandals and affairs, okay? So people ate up this magazine and very much took it for truth. It was, I want to compare it to the National Enquirer. Yeah, but less aliens. Or maybe. The piece cited several specific examples of Desi stepping out with other women. In one instance, he claims Desi had a male relative were at a bungalow in the Beverly Hills Hotel when Desi's relative called one of Hollywood's best door-to-door dame services. At that point, 2 women showed up. One fell ill, but the other, Mindy, was told to wait until 2 a.m. before approaching their bungalow. Once the magic hour hit, Desi apparently whisked Mindy away to a different bungalow, but returned 20 minutes later so that Mindy could spend time with his relative. Mindy left at 3:45 a.m., considerably richer. The last sentence in the upsetting accounts of Desi's extramarital activities is somehow more haunting than the stories he shared. Quote, "And Desi most certainly loves Lucy. It's just that, like a lot of other husbands, he's got a little extra love to go around." And Desi seems unabashed. What the magazine meant by that is that apparently one of Desi's friends quoted him saying, "I don't get why Lucy gets so mad. I don't take out other women. I just take out other hookers." Yeah, I have no idea why she would be so upset. Lucille Ball was so angry and so humiliated and rightfully resentful and frustrated that she goes to this party, this like very fancy party. She's in a ball gown, beautiful evening gown. And this guy, Scott, is bartending, and apparently she walks up to him